Welcome to the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast, your go-to place for approachable conversations around sacred sexuality and conscious relationships. I'm your host, Janine McKinnon, certified trauma-informed sex, love, and relationship coach who's on a mission to support 1 million women and couples to experience deeper connection and more expansive pleasure inside and outside the bedroom. This is the space to go deep, to dive below surface level relationships and mess sex and explore the sacredness that sexuality and conscious relationships have to offer. Because deep connection, spiritual sexuality, full body orgasms, and transmuted sexual energy are available to everyone. And I'm here to serve the collective, to provide the knowledge, wisdom, and tools to access them. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful we're able to connect in this way, and I can't wait to dig into the contents of this episode with you. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to another Tuesday transmission episode inside the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast. And today we are digging into all things vibrators. So my message is your vibrator isn't ruining you, but it might be holding you back. But before we dig into all the nitty-gritty with the vibrators, I have a simple request or a desire, and that is for all of you frequent listeners that are checking in week after week, episode after episode. I would so appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a rating or a review. Those ratings and reviews just take a quick few minutes, and they really make a big impact to help this podcast reach more women who can really use the inspiration, the open and honest, approachable conversations when it comes to all things love, sex, and relationships. So if you're able to do that, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And now we can get into the vibrator conversation. And so a question I find comes up quite frequently around my vibrator has ruined me, it's desensitized me, do vibrators desensitize you? The only way I'm able to orgasm is with a vibrator. How do I get over this? And so what I would like to say is your vibrator isn't ruining you. They can absolutely be a helpful tool, but it might be holding you back. And when it comes to actually holding you back is when it becomes the only way you can achieve orgasm. When you are desiring to orgasm with your partner, but it just doesn't happen. And so every single time you end up reaching for that vibrator to get you there to feel that orgasm. And yes, I absolutely understand wanting to experience that within your intimate connections to be able to have that really nice feel good orgasm. And if that is your only pathway to pleasure that you are reinforcing time after time after time, it's absolutely holding you back. And that's because vibrators feel nothing like human touch or like a penis, right? And so I've been seeing different conversations happening on the flip side with men who are masturbating to porn. And so they are habituating themselves to their hand, to the certain type of speed, to this certain type of stimuli. And when they're getting with an actual woman, they're not able to get hard and erect or even climax. And that's because of how they have habituated their pleasure. They've trained themselves to orgasm in a very specific way, and it's causing a very big impact in relationships. Now, that exact same thing is happening with vibrators, and I don't think it is having the conversation it deserves. And so again, there's no shame or hate on vibrators. They have a time and a place. They can absolutely be a great pleasure tool to bring into your collection. And they shouldn't be the be all end all, because if that is your main go-to when you are masturbating or self-pleasuring, and this is one thing that I've seen come up quite frequently, and that I think kind of shifts as you go from masturbation into slow pleasure and then sacred sexuality, many women tend to go for the quick get off masturbation style, grab the vibrator and quickly vibe one out. And again, yes, time and a place for that. Absolutely. And if that's the only way you are feeding your body pleasure and the only way you are reaching climax, you are training your body to come like that. You're training your body to be fast, have that intense vibration, and then orgasm. And you know what? Sex looks nothing like that. And there's no way you can replicate that with your partner. And also, you're kind of robbing yourself of like the amazing orgasms that are available to you when you are just aiming for that quick, short burst and then that energy poofs away. Because there's no way you can begin to tap into those rolling waves of pleasure and orgasm through that quick burst. And then how this further screws things up for people and where I see all of this frustration coming is this is the pattern. This is how those needs are being met. Often it's like single ladies. This is how you can fill your needs. And again, totally get it. No shame. And then when it comes to actually being with a partner, things aren't necessarily progressing as you would like them to. And you start to put a bunch of pressure on yourself. Feeling like you should be orgasming already, that you are taking too long, that your partner is going to worry that you're not enjoying things because you're not achieving that climax. And then this thought spiral happens and you're completely taken out of your body and into your head and your orgasm is so far away. It was already not happening and now it's completely checked out when you go through that cycle. And pressure does not equal pleasure. The more you put pressure on yourself, the further pleasure is going to get away. And that's why if we're wanting to move past our reliance on vibrators, we got to shake it up a bit. We got to switch things around, maybe shift our approach to both our self-pleasure practices as well as how we approach our partnered sexual experiences. And I feel like this really starts with us. That's why I recommend that weekly date night with yourself. This is part of the work we do within Unapologetic Practices, as well as Ignite, is that weekly date night with yourself, that self-pleasure practice. That's kind of like your lab, where you get to play around with things and build that safety and that calm nervous system and accessing pleasure in new ways, because it already feels totally awkward and weird and out there to do these things on your own and uncomfortable. And then when you're doing it with another person and being witnessed in it and thinking about what they may be thinking about you or what they may be thinking about themselves because of how you are doing, again, you can see that's where you get into your head and out of pleasure. So when you can really focus and give yourself that space to practice within your self-pleasure practice, you can cultivate that confidence within yourself. You can strengthen those pleasure pathways within yourself. So that way, when you bring it to your partnered experiences, it feels a little bit more natural. It doesn't feel quite as clunky. It might still feel a little bit clunky, but not as clunky compared to just trying things out with them without doing it with yourself first. And so what you can do within your self-pleasure practice and then transfer into your partnered experience is to slow down. It's all about the journey. It's all about tapping into your sensations and your feelings. And you do that through slowness, by taking time to really prime yourself. And so depending where you are with this, like slowness might be like, no, I ain't got time for that. And I totally get it. And you don't need to go into like a 30-minute self-pleasure session right out the gate. I actually just talked about this on Instagram at the time of recording this. is that it happens in baby steps. If you're someone who's super fast paced, not used to being in your body, and you've trained your body to orgasm quickly through a vibrator and get on with your day, okay, what slowness and taking time to prime yourself might look like is giving yourself 2 minutes of sensual touches, warming yourself up, touching your hair, your face, your arms, your thighs, your belly, moving around the outside of your vulva, and just give yourself 2 minutes to warm yourself up a little bit before going into using your vibrator or whatever you like to do. And then you build from that. It's baby steps, taking it one step at a time. And so you can slowly lengthen that priming up process using things like the guided audios inside Unapologetic Practices to warm yourself up. And what I really love about being guided, I actually myself use the audios within Unapologetic Practices, is that when you are guided, you're able to tap into that yin state, that flow state, that receiver state, and you're not as much of thinking about what you need to do, which can feel kind of clunky when you're starting to play with slowness, with self-pleasure and sacred sexuality. But again, it's just one little baby step at a time. Do you desire to feel confident in your body and empowered in your sexuality? The Honeypot Meditation is a potent 12-minute visualization to support you in connecting with your sexuality and rewiring your subconscious with the confident, radiant energy you'd love to embody. Download completely free through the link in the show notes and get ready to immerse yourself in a visceral experience as you connect with your sensual, radiant essence. And so I just really encourage you to bring in more full body pleasure before going to the direct stimulation. And then as you build your comfort level with that, as you begin to bring in more curiosity and exploration while taking the pressure off of things and just really being there for the journey and the discovery rather than the goal, you can begin to lengthen the time you're doing this. You can begin to incorporate some slow pleasure tools like wands or yoni eggs. I really love the quality from wands. Personally, I do have I believe it's a 15% off discount code that I will include in the session notes for you. They have really great quality for their tools. But those are ones that really encourage the mind-body connection with your pleasure and with your sensations. And when you're used to using vibrators all the time, and if you're used to having penetration before your body is actually warmed up, which is very common amongst women, chances are you're going to have numbness. And that's why you go to vibrators, because you don't feel much during sex. You don't feel much during penetration. And so there's a few reasons for that. I feel like that should probably be a whole podcast episode before I get too off track with talking about that. But just to say that it's normal to not have a ton of sensation at the beginning. That's why I really guide people through these processes, through the upcoming Ignite program, is to take your time to build the muscle of your mind-body connection, to feel those sensations and to feel pleasure from that. Building that safety in your body to feel pleasure in that way. Beginning to bring in holistic sex tools like breath, sound, and movement to begin to play with your sexual energy and feel it expand more and more. And this is what you get to bring into your partnered pleasured experiences. Taking your time, giving more space for warming things up before penetration. I know I mentioned this somewhere before. I can't remember exactly where, if it's in other episodes or on Instagram, but studies have shown that it takes roughly 20 to 40 minutes for the clitoris and the full vulva and vaginal walls to become engorged and have that really increased blood flow, and then to welcome penetration. And from there, it takes a further 15 plus minutes to achieve orgasm. So just to normalize that quick orgasm that you achieve through vibrators isn't necessarily the natural path to climaxing. And so alleviating some pressure off yourself in your partnered experiences and your solo pleasure practices when you're working with this and working on other pathways to pleasure and being less reliant on vibrators is to just give yourself some permission to take some time. It's normal to take some time, and you can have fun playing within that before you get to the penetration. And when you do that, you're going to notice you're much more lubricated. You are going to feel a lot more sensations because of that engorgement, because of all the blood flow that's happening to your genitals. And then when you're able to, again, train that mind-body connection, really focus on the sensations that you're having, that's where your pleasure builds and builds and builds, and you begin to achieve orgasms in different ways. Now, another piece of this, if you are looking to expand kind of your orgasm repertoire, because I feel like many people that are reliant on vibrators, they're reliant on clitoral stimulation to achieve orgasms. And again, totally get it. That tends to be the pathway to pleasure for most women. Absolutely okay. Nothing wrong with that. And if you're someone who's looking for that more, there's ways you can play around with this. And so how you can train your body to feel that orgasmic pleasure in different ways is what I call pleasure pairing. So you're going to add that clitoral stimulation to other pleasurable stimuli. And so this is how you can begin to access your first breastgasms or throatgasms. And I've used this particular tool myself to experience each of these things, is when you are pairing these different pleasure sensations, and then you ease on and off of the clitoral stimulation while playing around more and more with the other stimulation, whether it's your breasts or your G-spot or all of the different things, and tapping into that pleasure and feeling that expansion. That's how you train your body to feel pleasure and reach climax in all of these different ways. And so perhaps you're noticing as I'm talking about all of this is that it is a practice. These things aren't going to come naturally to us. And I think a lot of women think they're broken because it doesn't automatically come to them. And you're not broken. You just don't know how to do these things. And no one's taught you these things. So it's not your fault. And that's what I'm here for, is to teach you these things and to walk you through these things in a way that really meets you where you're at. And we're all at different stages of our journey. Some people are able to access those clitoral orgasms through hands with all the different things and fairly easy ways, and wants to stack on that more and more with breastgasms and squirting and all those different things. And great, there's all these ways you can do that. And then some of you where it's like, no, you're reliant on vibrators and you might not even achieve orgasm very consistently, if at all. And that's okay. You're not alone in that. And there's ways of taking baby steps to help build that comfort, that safety within your body, that safety to just feel pleasure, to receive pleasure, and feel safe surrendering into the expansiveness of it, because there's a lot of fear that gets in that way of losing yourself in that, of losing yourself in the wild, or being judged for being wildly orgasmic. And so I'm here to help you do the inner work to help you reach these different states of pleasure, no matter where you're at in your journey. And that's what I walk you through with Ignite. We are starting March 18th. I'm so incredibly excited as I'm loading the content onto the website and having more of the conversations. And it's just, this is the holistic program for deeper pleasure. Because as I've said in other episodes, it's not all about the tips and tricks. It's about the inner work, overcoming those subconscious beliefs, rewiring your nervous system, and then having those different holistic sex tools that help you amplify your pleasure, help you create new pathways to pleasure, and also just understanding your own unique sexuality roadmap, because that's different for everyone. What works in the movies certainly is very unlikely to work for you, and what works for others in their partnership, again, might not work for you in your partnership. So this program is about finding what works for you and being able to apply that in an approachable way. So if you're interested, if you're like, what's that? I would love to answer any questions you may have, and I hope to see you within the program. I will leave a link, and I'm so excited. It's 8 weeks together. For me, it's very paced at a way that works for you. We have a week-long integration break in there, so you can just have some time to rest and digest before moving into things again. And yeah, I'm excited. I'll leave you with that and just sending you off, wishing you a pleasure and love-filled week. Thank you for joining us inside the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you feel called, I would so appreciate it if you left us a review to help us reach more women and couples so they can experience deeper connection and more expansive pleasure inside and outside the bedroom too. Until next time, embrace your desire and experience your magic.